everybody. Welcome back to Unite to Heal. What an amazing organization Amudim is. What an amazing opportunity for us to come together in support of everything that they do in the Jewish community. They are the ones who deal with some of the biggest challenges, the most important challenges of the day, victims of abuse, addiction, mental health issues, anxiety, suicidality, you name it. All the most difficult situations in the Jewish community often make their ways to the doorsteps of Amudim, who have such an incredible team of talented and professional staff ready at 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And we are here today to be part of this Unite to Heal, to be able to give them the support they need to do what they're going to do. So first of all, Yossi, I want to thank you for coming on today. And we're going to do this little segment here called Raising Healthy Children in an Unhealthy World. And definitely both parts of that are true. We're trying to raise healthy children. The world is not healthy at all. Before we get started, give us a little bit of background. Tell us about how you got here, that you're the guy we call when we have problems with unhealthy world and children.
I First of all, I'm so happy to be here. If for no, I mean, obviously supporting Amudim is always an honor, but just to be able to speak to Rabbi Burnham, it's been so long. It's too long. We tend to only be able to see and speak to each other when somebody's listening or recording us. It's not, we have to be able to do this at some time where no one's
Crawl
listening.
back to the Deutsch home at some point and just
There
have
you
Shabbos together,
go. We
right?
got to get to the Dutch backyard for a barbecue. That's what we got to do. Um, like I said, my name is Esman Shushan. I work in many different fields within the Jewish community. I teach in a high school, mashgiach in a high school. My main starting point with everything was when I was living in Eretz Yisrael. I became a KSAC, certified alcohol and substance abuse counselor, and I did that because I was working already in a rehab as um, we'll call it an interventionist. In Israel, they have a little bit of different terms than they have here, and um, I immediately fell in love with the work. I tell a lot of people who contact me, younger people who contact me, who ask me like what road I took, what degrees I got. So I took a very weird road to get to working with people, and I don't suggest it for anyone. Go get a degree, go become a therapist, go become something, and then But Baruch Hashem, through being a Rebbe, through working in the right programs with the right people, I was a lot of a certain trust within the Jewish community and Rabbanim and therapists. And now I get to do training for Rabbanim and therapists and many different people about crisis intervention, mainly around family crisis,
I didn't know that,
teenagers,
by the way.
and
I didn't know that you trained Rabbanim and therapists.
yeah. I've done quite a few already.
Wow. All right.
This is one of the things. It's like a bunch of little things. Mainly, most of my day is answering emails and taking phone calls. It's like 99% of my day, I think, and that's just from my wife. And then I do for like clients also.
Right. Okay. So it sounds like a lot of fun. I like also answering emails from time to time. Okay. How many years are you doing this? How many years are you working with various people at risk in different situations?
So it's an interesting thing. When I was in high school, it's a little bit shocking to hear, but I like I like when people are straight up about what they believe they are, as opposed to. So you can have someone who's an artist, or someone who's a musician, or someone who's. My wife is a singer songwriter, and it took her years to say those words. I am a singer songwriter. Before that, it was always I play a little bit of this, and I write sometimes a little bit of. So I like when people are straightforward about it, because when you put it out there, it becomes a lot more of what you are. I more or less started when I was like 16, 17.
Hmm.
I was in Darche and the high school, and Rabbi Bender had given me a few boys to learn with, and that's how I started. They were kids who were then, I guess, in eighth grade, a little bit of troubled backgrounds, a little bit of troubled life. And that's really how I started. And then when I was in Israel is when I officially started working as that. So I'm going to give ages over here, but it's been about 20 years now. 20 years
Beautiful.
I've been, Baruch Hashem. So
Okay.
20 or over.
Well, yeah, I'm thinking I was thinking 25, but okay.
Yeah. Something like 20, maybe a little bit
I'm just
over.
calculating how old I am, how
Right,
old
that's what I'm
Yossi,
saying.
how old Motion. I'm just trying to calculate all of our
Right.
mutual friends, and okay.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. It could be 20, it could be 25, but I'm only 30, so I don't know. I don't know how that went. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Okay, let's get down to some questions over here. So, like this, in the Torah, when Hakadosh Baruch Hu talks about creating man in Bereshis, in Genesis, Parak Aleph, Pasuk Chaf Vav, chapter 1, verse 26, Hashem says, Nasa Adam B'Tzalmenu, let us create man
Oh,
in our image. And of course, Rashi says, Afal Pisha lo siyu b'yitziraso, v'yesh makom laminus lirdos, even though no one helped God make man, and when God says let us make man, it can leave room for people to make a mistake and say there were many people involved. There's not just one God. Lo nimna hakasav milalame derech eretz umidas anava. The pasuk did not hold itself back from teaching the way of the world, the way you should be, derech eretz, the proper way of living,
right,
umidas anava, and the
right.
trait of humility. Sheyia gadol nimlach v'notel rishus min hakatan, that even a great person should ask from other people before making a big decision. Kal v'chomer, a littler person should make questions from a big person. So Hashem is showing if even I, God, ask, so to speak, from my malachim, hey, let's do this. What do you guys think? Then for sure, all of us who are not great should be asking a lot. I think there's 2 points that I really feel are strong from this. Number one, the idea that when it comes to raising children, the last thing you should be uncomfortable with is asking questions, right? When God is creating humanity, God says, "I'm going to show you. Look, let's do this. How are we going to do this, so to speak?" As if God is and he's mapping out the model for us. He's saying nobody ever comes with an instruction manual and ask a lot of questions. And I think that's such an important message in general for today's parents. Ask questions, ask away,
Without a
ask
question.
rabbanim, ask therapists, ask anybody you can who might give you insight and help. And second of all, then Hashem is maybe showing us Nasa Adam. It takes a village to make a person. It really takes a lot. So it takes parents, a rav, a school, a community, proper friends. It takes so much to Nasa Adam to make a person. So today we have many parents, and they're just trying to Nasa Adam. They're trying to make a healthy person, growing, healthy, stable, normal, in a world that is just so incredibly off kilter and unhealthy and an olam hafach ra'isi, an upside down world. So let me ask you the first question. What do you think are the three most important ingredients to being nasa adam, to making a healthy human? First, just give us just one, two, three, and then we'll go into each one. So go for it.
All right. So actually, first, I just want to say, like perfect, perfect Rashi, perfect pasuk to open with. Are you a professional? Perfect, perfect, perfect. That is it. And I've always said on that Rashi and on that pasuk that obviously nothing in the Torah, no one needs that reminder, but nothing in the Torah is a mistake, nothing in the Torah. And one of the classes I used to give in Eretz Yisrael, I did it here in high school also, is the ability to take, is teaching my guys the ability to take any Rashi, specifically Rashi. My Rabbi, one of my Rabbi, Rav Rubinstein, always used to do this Rashi in Gemara. Take any Rashi and the simplest of Rashi and say, he used to say as a joke, because I think there's a book called What's Bothering Rashi. So he used to say, what's bothering Rashi over here? And you can come up with a world off of that one Rashi. And this Rashi over here and this pasuk over here was put in the perfect place at the perfect time because it predates everything. And it's not only raising children, it's everything. Everything anyone's going to ever do is number one, you're not alone. You don't exist alone. Therefore, everyone in your life comes into play, and everyone who's there is important in playing that role. Every single person around you is important in playing that role. Trying to go it alone is all ego. It's all our ego. And it's become something that I'm sure we'll discuss at some point over here, but it's become something of a real misnomer in Klal Yisrael, which is, I'm probably going to say this a few times over the course of this idea that the best, healthiest people in your community are the people who hide their stuff the best. Like that's how we're teaching children. Just hide your stuff the best, and no one knows about it, and then you're the best and healthiest. No one's going to question you. Someone came to Rabbi
I'm just
Berkowitz
curious.
and
I'm
asked
going to
them,
stop you there for a second. Do you think that's really?
"Yeah,
Do you think that's really the? I feel like we've moved a little bit from that already as college. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm just
we
totally.
we we definitely." organizations like Amudim, organizations that are out there right now, through the awareness that have been spread, we've definitely started to move. But from the calls I get, from the ideas I get, it's so many people not getting help. Like I was about to say, someone came to Rabbi Berkowitz and asked him a question about shidduchim with a boy who was in this situation, with a boy who's been to therapy, right? Is that a red flag? Is that? And Rabbi Berkowitz immediately shot back. He's like, "Do you want the guy who didn't go to therapy? Like, what are you after? Like, what do you?" It becomes this major. And I say to crowds all the time, I've been to therapy. I've been to therapy. I went through a lot of things randomly. I've been to therapy. I don't need to give anyone a reason why or an excuse why. I'm totally proud of it. I have no issue. It was amazing. It was amazing, right? The idea of oh no, what's that going to do to shidduchim? It's gonna narrow the court to marry someone who you actually can connect to. That's what it's gonna do to your shidduchim. You're right. You're not gonna go out with 1,000 people. The phone calls aren't gonna come pouring in. But hiding these things and teaching people that putting things away instead of asking for help, getting out there, is one of the most detrimental things. But you wanted to know about the three things that, but that's why I love that pasuk and
right.
and
the
that
three
idea.
Amudim,
So
the three
much
pillars.
Yeah,
I'm asking for the three Amudim. There we go.
The three Amudim. So I like to try to stay positive. So the three Amudim, the three pillars
And by the way, you asked me,
raising children.
You said to me, you've been doing this for a while. I started when I was 15. Okay.
You beat me.
So you got this story. You always tell me, like, you're not gonna believe it, but I started when I was 16 years old. And someone comes along, he's like, yeah, I started when I was 15.
That's when I was 15. I'm like, what? Like, you also had Rabbi Ben the rest of Rabbi. So
all righty, moving along. Three things.
Yeah, three things. So number one, a lot of people. I'm going to go more with the three things because I don't like the whole. What's the one? Anytime anyone in the crowd, when it comes to question and answer, they're like, "What's the one thing?" I always say, I'm like, make sure you eat chocolate every day. If I have to choose one thing, I'm going to choose something insane because there is no one thing. There is no such thing. There is no such thing. And when we try to encompass things into like a one thing, it never. But the three things that I would go for,
like one
as
thing. Don't microwave metal. That's it. That's your thing, guy.
Right. Make sure they wear helmets. Don't let them play with fire. Like, we knew that one already. I'm like, but did you know it? Like, okay. So, so three things that I'm going to go with. Three things that I feel are overlooked, that aren't given enough weight. Sure. One, as a bonus one, is going to be davening, because like that's that everyone's like, I know, but really, like, yeah, but seriously, davening, not only because of the power of tefillah, but because of 3 times a day you're putting into your mind and you're saying to your own neshama, my children need to be okay. You're also consistently and constantly reminding yourself that I need to be there for them. Davening is a very, very, very important part of it. But I'll go for the three.
Also, by the way, when you put that in your davening 3 times a day, you're also reminding yourself 3 times a day that you cannot do it on your own, which is also just humbling to you as a parent and reminds you of your parental limitations.
Without a question. Also, we're going to go into when we say it to the Rabbi Shalom, it also calms us down a little bit, which was going to be my number 3. It also calms us down a little bit, which I'm going to get to. Number one, I think it's the cornerstone. I think number 3 is the most important. But number 1, if I had to make it a more important one or a less important one, but number 1 has to be the cornerstone of everything. And I think people get this one wrong, is Shalom Bayis. Shalom Bayis is a key. Now, you can have a divorced couple that still has Shalom Bayis. I want to be clear here. Shalom Bayis does not mean this lovey-dovey all the time, it means that you are showing that where this child came from and where this home was built from was a solid, stable, peaceful place. Even if that place ended, divided because of whatever reason, it doesn't matter. The child still looks up and doesn't fully understand this whole division or idea or whatever it is. So when it sees how they get along, and when the child sees how they view each other and how they respect each other, it now is going to develop a certain self-esteem and a certain self-confidence that words will never be able to give our children. We'll never be able to give our children. That's number 1, is the Shalom Bayis. Again, in any situation, the Shalom Bayis, and as wide as far out as we can go with the Shalom Bayis. So Shalom bayis between husband and wife is where that starts. But shalom bayis between father-in-law and son-in-law, mother-in-law and daughter-in-law, showing a shalom around all of them, especially in front of these children, is so important. I hope I don't have to go to extremes over here. I was saying that, like, obviously never using children against each other this is like the worst idea ever. And we claim and rationalize that we're doing it to protect them. We're not. A child needs to see certain things. And one of those things is shalom between their parents, and their parents shalom between the wider scale of the family. So that would be number one. It's
so
imperative for the, yeah.
While you're going into, I just want to point out that one of the reasons why that shalom bias is so important is because it gives the kid the stability to feel like he can go out on a limb. It's so important for human beings to be able to develop their own personalities and their own sense of self. If I don't feel safe in my house because I see people are cutting each other down all the time,
right.
I don't want to step out on a limb. I don't want to take a chance of being anything other than what I feel like I need to be in order to fit in the box. And that's so dangerous. The more I feel like there's safety and security in the home, that it's stable, the more I'm willing to go out and develop who I am, which is ultimately our biggest goal as parents. Not to
without
create,
a question.
Yeah. Okay, number two.
I remember I was in this meditation class one time I took, and it was just general. It was general meditation and breathing or whatever. And he said, have some sort. If you don't have anything, you could just count. But if you can have a name or a street or a number or say Yerushalayim or something like that, that immediately gives you a sense of security. Use that as a little bit of a mantra. And immediately, it was the funniest thing in the world. Immediately, the first thing that popped into my head, and I was already in like this like trance state, but the first thing that popped in my head was my home phone, and they don't live there anymore, was my home phone number as a kid. Because I knew that even though I was away for high school and I dormed and everything, dialing that number, 718-338, it's not their number anymore, so no one can call, 269, dialing that number always meant that I'm about to be supported on the other end. And that meant that no matter where I was, or what, that number can roll in the back of my mind, that even if I'm not calling them, even if I'm in this situation and I'm still going to be able to have that self-esteem and have that confidence, because no matter how bad it gets, I still have 718-338-2696 to call to sort of have that thing. That is an extremely important idea, because even as an adult, I was very much an adult when I took this class. That was still the first thing that popped into my head. And I'm telling you, one thing to realize is that we never grow up. We never do. We're always children to a degree, right? We always have a father and a mother. Even if they're gone, we have a father and a mother, and we're the child of that father and a mother very quickly. So funny story.
Right. Before you get to this funny story, I was going to say, I was thinking now, so what would be my mom? Like, what would I be thinking of? And I was like, it would be the number of my parents' credit card, because I would know that at the other end of that, I'd be supported.
That is amazing. I love that one. That is great. Yeah, that's great.
Okay.
Or just picturing that credit card, whatever it looked like, that would be great. The funny thing is, I know you, Rabbi, and you didn't have your parents' credit card. No.
That's true.
No. We weren't those kids. All right. That's
right. That's incredibly true.
I remember very quickly. I went to I was driving with a friend of mine, and his father called him up, and his father I knew very, very well. Also, we were kids. We were like 17, 18. I knew his father very well. Also, his father was one of these very laid back dads, chilled out guy. Like, he would always make their own eggs in his house. The most laid back, chilled out, relaxed, funny guy. And I'm out there with my friend in Lakewood, and his father calls us up, and he says, I have to drive grandma to back to her facility, whatever it is. It was like Sunday morning. She was by them for Shabbos. He's like, we got to switch cars because whatever. And I saw my friend immediately. And he was also a very chilled out guy. So my friend immediately got a little steel, got a little bit worried, got a little bit anxious about this. And he's like, okay, fine, I'm coming. So we drive to like this parking lot where we were going to meet and switch cars. And we drive in, and my friend parks like 2 rows behind where his father was. And it's like an empty parking lot. And he's like, just stand next to the car, and maybe just stand over there. I'm like, dude, what's going on? I know your father. I want to go say hi. He's like, no, not a good idea. Just I'm like, what are you talking about? And and I start walking up with him, and he's like, all right. He's like, but you have to promise me, whatever you see or hear right now, you can never speak about it again. I don't want to talk about it. I'm like, what are you saying? Like, fine, yeah, sure. Sure enough, his father gets out of the car, and you can tell he's in a huff. He's like stressed out, and he walks to the back, and he immediately, and he's never like this. He's never like this. Shoots at his son. What took you so long? And I'm like, whoa. And he's a big guy. And I was like, whoa, what's good? And I'm like, hey, Mr. And he just like grumbles, like doesn't say a word to me. Opens up the trunk. He starts pulling out bags, going up to the other car, throwing the bags in. And out of the back seat, the smallest, frailest, and this is a family of very big guys. The smallest and frailest old lady gets out of the back, and she's got a little babushka thing on, and she starts walking, to the car with her cane, and she turns to her son and she goes, Shmuley, did you remember the yellow bag? And he loses it. And he goes, Ma, I remember the bag. And he starts yelling at her. And I was like, if a cop was watching this scene right now of this like 6'3" huge guy yelling at this frail old lady and throwing bags around, we're all gonna get arrested. Like, what is going on? So his grandmother just like waves off his father and like goes into the car, and he gets into the car. His father doesn't say anything, he just gets into the car and rips out of the parking lot. And I'm just standing over there looking around like, what in the world just happened? And my friend turned to me and he goes, listen, my father's a great guy and I love him. And how you know him is really how he is. But when his mother's around, something happens to him. I don't know what it is, but my whole family knows the minute she's around, he loses his mind for a little bit. And that's it. That's just the way it is. That's been my life, my whole life. And I realized, I'm like, here is this. His father was well into his 50s and an established guy, wealthy, successful, very established person in the community, part of all organizations. And he still was a little boy when it came to his mother, reminding him something. We're always still that child, and we need to remember that. We need to hold out on to that. So, number two.
We're gonna have to move into. We're not yet at the lightning round, but we're gonna have to move a little bit faster because we got a bunch of questions here.
Yeah, number two. So number one was that Shalom Bayis. Number two was actual time spent. People overdo or underdo time. I have parents saying to me all the time, he doesn't talk to me, right? They don't talk to us. He doesn't say anything, she doesn't say anything, she just grunts, he just grunts, so the reason for that is because I actually tend to, in my old age, side with the kid on that one. If you don't have a relationship with somebody and they start, and your relationship consists of coming home and you get interrogated right when you walk through the door, that's your relationship. No one wants to talk to you. So in communication, there are two major features or ingredients to communication that needs to happen. Number one, someone needs to be brave enough to communicate, to speak. Number two, that second person needs to be able to create the space for that person to speak. So if those two ingredients are there, communication and relationship can blossom. But if those two ingredients aren't there, that communication is not going to happen. How do those two people get into that space? So the first person who needs to communicate needs to feel safe and comfortable communicating. They're not just going to put themselves in a bad situation, admitting everything that's going wrong and the like. And as a side point, a lot of parenting nowadays has become just finding out what our kids are up to, just finding out what they're doing wrong. And then I know. You don't know anything. You know the worst thing this kid did that week. That doesn't mean you know anything. And number two, when the
also,
parent
like you're saying,
creates...
I know what they did, not who they are, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Very well said. Yeah, exactly. So now when the parent, and for the parent to create that space, they also need to have a relationship in order to allow that space. And no matter how many parents I work with, no matter how much I've seen in my own parenting, the child that I have a deeper relationship with, I am less worried about. I am less scared about. Anytime I get, the school will call and say, oh, they got into a fight or they got into this. I'm not as worried. I'm not as afraid about the kid that I have a relationship with because I know that kid. It's not as scary. It's not as worrisome. How does that get built?
So when the school calls you and they're like, your son is holding someone hostage in our school, you're like, don't worry about it. I know that kid.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry. He's playing around. He's playing around. Tell him the game's over. Tell him that game's over. It's time for him to be the cop, not the robber. we don't have time for the story right now, but it has happened where someone called me and said, your kid blooded up another kid's nose. And I was like, no, he didn't. It never happened. That's not, I know my son. It didn't happen. He's like, I know your son blooded up another kid's nose. So I said, listen, I know my son. I know Yonatan. It didn't happen. They're like, who's Yonatan? I'm like, exactly. It didn't happen. They're like, no, your son Yitzhak. I'm like, first of all, totally happened. My son Yitzhak definitely busted up that kid's nose. Second of all, he's like 4. How is this a phone call? Like, how are we having a conversation about 2 4-year-olds that got into a fight? It's not a thing, right? So now one of them, I knew right away it wasn't him. I kind of wish it was him. Very me. But the other one, for sure, it was him. There's no question. How does that relationship, though, develop and get built? That relationship develops and gets built. I tell people all the time, again, we don't have a lot of time to go into this over here, but it's like dating them, right? If someone were to propose on a first date, it would be inappropriate. It'd be insane. It would be a crazy thing to do. Why? You don't know this person. We're asking these kids to be as vulnerable and honest with us when image to them is everything. Vulnerable and honest to us without even on the first date, because just proximity does not equal personal connection. Just because this kid has been living in your home for X amount of years does not mean that the two of you have a relationship. In order to have a relationship, relationships are built. I always like to say this, people kill me for it, but it's how I say it, so I'm sorry. But relationships are built on stupidity. It's just silly, especially if it's a little kid, just silly hanging out, having fun together, being around that kid. You as a parent already have an in. That child wants nothing more than to sit next to you. And when they're little, they do it all the time. They hang on us. They sit on our lap. As they get older, they get more independent. And if what you gave them when they were little was that time and energy and physical space to sit there, to hold them, to rub their back, to be there for them, then when they get older, they don't need it as much because they got that amount of self-esteem. Now they need other things. They need to be appreciated. They need to be seen. They need to be wanted to be around. But the one thing, and I'll go to number 3, the one thing I tell parents that if you need to repair this, which most of us, especially if you have a large Jewish family, might have missed one along the way of developing too deep of a relationship. So if you need to develop this, so you go to a little bit of an extreme. But I tell people all the time, if you went right now, in the middle of the day, your kid's in school, your 14-year-old son, 15-year-old son's in school, you went right now, you went to school and you picked him up, right? For zero reason. He didn't know it was coming in. You picked him up and you took him out for some Chinese and you just spoke to him about nothing. No ulterior motives, no what's doing in school, how is everything, how is that? And you just sat there telling him about your day, telling him what's going on for you, telling him
and importantly, criticism also, right? Meaning you have to, that's very important.
No.
Zero criticism in that kind of space.
As if this kid was a friend of yours in a certain sense. And you sit down, I'm not telling you to be friends with your kid, but as if in this situation he was, you sit down and you're like, I had a hankering for Chinese today. And I was like, I'm not going alone. And you're just the first person that popped into my head that I would love to go to Chinese with you. So we're having Chinese together. Do you know Chinese is not really Chinese food? It's made by a Jewish guy in San Francisco. Whatever it is, like just random stuff. And then you bring them right back to school. You drop them off. And you're like, all right, Tyler, thanks. Thanks for coming out with me. Get back to class. Don't tell them I took you out or something like, it's something funny. And he goes back. That kid walks back into school like, what in the world just happened? Did he just want to spend time with me?
Right.
Yeah. Did he just want to? Does he just value my space? Like that kid walks around that school. I don't care if another kid tries to bully him. I don't care if he doesn't get chosen for football. I don't care what happens that day. This kid thinks he is the man. You have that power as a parent, and being able to build stuff like that means the world. No one will be able to take or move your child around anywhere without your say so, without him coming to you first. And number 3, which I think is the most important, I was going to call it from my Rabbi as the most important, and in my old age, I see it as the most important. It is the thing that I personally violate the most, and I am a work in progress on, but it is the most important. And that is, and it doesn't sound like it, but I'm telling you, please hear it. It is better to be calm. Being calm, no matter what the storm or situation with children. Freak out later. Freak out afterwards. Lose it when you're alone. It's fine. But when you're with your children, being calm is the most important thing. Because the example I like to give, and I know we don't have time for examples, but this one is an important one if we're ever going to talk about parenting.
You got a 30-second example. Go for it.
30-second example. I'm standing outside in the back of my house. We have something that someone built before I was moved here. and I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt, calling it a pond. It's not a pond. It's a big, ugly puddle, and it freezes over in the winter. My son, Yitzhak, who is awesome, he comes out. I'm standing there, I don't know, staring out into space, probably trying to calm myself down about something. And my son, Yitzhak, comes running out and he's standing next to me and he's looking at the pond and he looks up at me. It was freezing outside and you could tell the top of the pond was already frozen. And he looks at me and he goes, Papa, do you think it could hold me up? Can I walk on it? I'm like, I don't know. You got to try. It's like a foot deep. I'm like, what's going to happen? So I'm like, you got to try to. So he touches it with his toe, and obviously nothing happens. He hits it with his foot, nothing happens. He runs to the back of the yard. He grabs this huge rock. He comes running over and he throws the rock down as hard as he can. Nothing happens. It skids across. He looks at me with this huge grin, like his face was where he's like, ah! And he jumps up and he smashes down with both of his feet onto it. And we hear a crack, but nothing happened. It didn't break. And he looks at me and goes, I'm standing on a lake. I'm like, I know, it's amazing. And he starts ice skating across it. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, this is parenting a certain kind of child in a nutshell. They come up and they give you a kick. And then they give you a harder kick. And then they throw a rock at you. And then they smash you with everything they have. I hate you. You're the worst one. I wish you would die. All these things. What are they trying to do? They're trying to see, can you hold me up? Are you strong enough to hold me? That's all they want to know. Can you hold me? If you freak out and turn, if you respond, you're saying, no, I'm cracking all over the place. I cannot hold you. I can't handle this right now. I'm losing my mind. I can't hold you. What the child wants to know is, can you hold me? If you're sitting there while he's doing all that and you're listening and you're empathetic and you're understanding and you're saying, wow, those are deep emotions. That feels like it's coming from inside. That feels like you've been holding on to that. Thank you for sharing that. When you say that and you're calm, this kid is like, oh my gosh, I have someone that can hold me. This person can hold me. That's everything to a kid. And that builds every amount of self-esteem, everything. That's why calm as number 3, but really the number 1 spot for me always goes to being calm.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Okay. We are running low on time over here, so we're going to move to the lightning round. Okay. You have literally 60 seconds. This is the hardest thing to rein in a Bensoussan. You know what I'm saying? Like you guys are built to just talk. So I'm like, you can't. There are people who say, like, they say it's not fair. Hashem went to all the nations and he offered them the Torah, but then he told them the hardest thing for them. Then he went to the Jews and he didn't tell them the hardest thing. It's not fair. So I believe one of the Rabbis, I think the Chidushei Arim says, Hashem did give the Jews the hardest mitzvah. The hardest mitzvah of them was like, don't climb up the mountain. For a Yid to see Kedusha, but not to be able to go after it is the hardest thing for a Yid.
Wow.
So for a Bensoussan, I'm going to cap you off at 60 seconds. This
Give me an audience.
Get your watch ready. Here we go. You got 60 seconds for each question. Okay. And of course, I understand these questions, they're not 60-second questions. For a much longer conversation, I'd recommend that you all call Yossi Bensoussan for much longer conversations about all these matters and more. So this is just a Rosh Prakim. This is a very abbreviated lightning round. Okay. What do you do when you've already messed up as a parent, right? We all mess up as parents all the times. And there's now significant dysfunction brewing in your home, a rebellious older child, and they seem to be influencing all the other kids already. What do you do? 60 seconds.
So first of all, don't believe that. There's no such thing. It's important that our children see that we are still human and that we mess up. That's fine. It's how we react afterwards. How quickly do we get over that? Is there silent treatment afterwards? Do we get into our own funk afterwards? Because again, that is breaking the calm, as opposed to communicating with them. I know I reacted this way. I would like to react this way. They're not your therapist, and they're not, someone that that it's not a confessional. But in a mature, responsible way, you can tell them that. Number 1. Number 2 is, even if the child that I one time had a 66-year-old woman call me up in tears saying, I just recently had a revelation in my life that the reason why all my children don't talk to me and they don't want me to see their children is because of me. It's not because they're bad kids that grew up in this world. And I'm listening to this lady. I'm like, I need to get you on camera right now. And I'm telling you right now, one of her kids did not speak to her in 2 years. 2 weeks later, they were in full-blown conversation. It is very, very easy as a parent to repair. It's not going to be perfect, but it's very easy to start the reparations with the child. It's going to take a lot. There's a lot to do, but it is so possible to do, especially if it's not that extreme of a situation. And it's just something I didn't do, then start doing it. Start doing it now and communicate it, especially if the child's an adult. You can communicate it. I realize that we never got to this and that, and I want to repair that. Let's go for coffee. Whatever it is.
All righty. Next question. I'm sure that obviously all Jewish people in America for sure wish they could live in out-of-town communities like Detroit and Cleveland, where there's just less pressure, less gashmias, where the air smells like freshly baked cookies. Unicorns will gladly take you to school in case you're late. Everyone's happy and functional. Maybe a bit hairy, but a happy Harry. You know what I'm saying? What do you recommend for parents who are living in these communities that are a little bit more intense, more pressure, very in town, children feel like they're always being scrutinized. There's immense pressure to be perfect, not just to get into high school or to get into summer camp or to get into seminary, but also in general, in the day-to-day. There's so much pressure about how they look and how they act, and it's so stifling. And you have one child or a couple children, they just don't fit that mold. What do you do as a parent to support a child who feels this intense pressure from outside and doesn't really fit that mold? 60 seconds.
So we touched on it before, the idea that we're teaching specifically girls. We're teaching girls, don't share anything with anyone. Lie the best, and you'll get the best shidduch. The best shidduch for who? I never understood that. Like, where no one's an individual anymore. Everyone wants the same exact guy, the same exact thing, and the same exact. It doesn't make sense. We ruined things like Mashiach with the way that we created Judaism in so many ways. We've ruined communities. We've ruined so many things. And I say we because I'm responsible for this also. We've done so much to destroy our original beauty of Judaism for this societal Judaism. What we need to do is, and I think everything going on in Eretz Yisrael was a wake-up call for so many people. And the wake-up call was, where have I been? Like, we woke up from a coma, from a trance. Like, what was I worrying about last week? What was going on? How was anything important? And that's where we need to be. Everyone, myself included, we need to start focusing inside, not out. The people who we're trying to impress outside of our house, when we're worried, when we're scared, when we're upset, when we're crying alone in a room, they're not the people we're calling. So why do they matter so much? We need to start focusing inside. We need to look at our families and realize my family purposefully does not fit in. I don't want them to fit in. You know why? Because whichever rabbi you're listening to, whichever speaker you're listening to, whichever guy you're going to, he also didn't fit in. Right? I was giving this as an example to a girl yesterday and her mother. This girl was from a certain community where the girls don't normally go to college, and this girl really wants to become a doctor. And I was talking to them, and I said to the mother, I was like, "What do you know of any from doctors from your community that are women?" She said, "Yeah, I know a few." I'm like, "Aren't they the best? Doesn't everyone call them all day? They're known as like pillars in their community right now, and they're the best." She's like, "Yeah, but she's going to be exposed to." I'm like, "You don't think they were exposed to? They were. You have a different child. That's amazing." And whether she's going to become a judge or she's going to become later on is when everyone's going to turn to you and be like, "How did you support it? That's amazing. You're right. Right now, people are going to tisk and do their thing. But there's going to be a time where this kid gets celebrated too. You need to be the first one that believed in them, not later on be the one that believed in them." I'm telling you right now, an original family and an original child are the ones that get known and make all the difference in our communities. They're the ones who support the communities. They're the ones who make all the difference. You're right. In the beginning and at first glance, no one does, but that's the birth pain you have to go through to be the greatest in your community. Done. That was like 90.
Okay, now I'm going to give you, I promise I can't even ask you a question anymore because like you're not capable. You're not capable of a 60-second answer. I'm serious, man. I got to be mechanech you a little bit.
I'm really not.
Okay. Here's another one. I think this is a really important one. I remember when I was going through a very difficult time in my life, there was a random person who happened to live in my parents' building in Eretz Yisrael. My parents made Aliyah when I was very young. I was 11 years old, and it was a very difficult adjustment. There was a person in my building. His name was Rabbi Lefkowitz. He's Baruch Hashem now Rosh Kol somewhere here in America. Amazing individual. And he really kind of came over and just just was so nice to me and so friendly and always ask how I'm doing and all that. It made a massive difference. When I look back at my life right now, he was like a light in difficult time. And our question is, you see a kid in show. He's 14, he's 15, and you can see he's kind of headed into a very tough path. What can you do as a non-parent to be a positive force in that child's life without being weird?
So specifically as a non-parent who is a non-professional who is not a rabbi, that's who I'm talking to
Correct.
right now.
Exactly. That's what I'm talking
So
about. Because
the
I'm saying we
rabbi,
as a
the rabbi,
community, we all
yeah,
need a nasa adam. We all need to be
right,
involved here.
right,
Yeah.
100%. The rabbi to go up to this kid is easy, and the professional to do the right thing is easy. Um, I love when, and this is, I'm going to tell you what it is in one quick thing, but I love when I see this. It warms my heart to no end. I'm sitting in a shul in a big Jewish community, and one kid came in for the kiddush, and you could tell his whole family was dressed a certain way and fit a certain mold, and he did not, very much did not. And you could tell he just got this very fresh haircut, and his father didn't look like he was very happy about the haircut. And okay, this one guy, bald guy, and I know the guy like does Amazon or something, walks up to this kid and he's like, and you could tell he didn't know the kid, didn't speak to the kid, never spoke to him, maybe knows his father a little bit, walks up to this kid, he goes, "Where did you get that haircut?" And the kid's like, and everyone got quiet. Everyone's like, "Oh no, what a," he's like, that's a $500 haircut. That is a nice haircut. That is and the guy was a little bit bold. He's like, I honestly, I wish I'm very jealous of you on that haircut. That is, and turns to his father and he goes, "It's a good looking boy you got over here. This guy looks like he's a newscaster." Like he said a whole bunch of, it felt like $1 million. The kid felt like $1 million. He pointed out specifically what was different about him, and he loved it. And then another guy jumped in and was like, "Yeah, yeah. If I still had you should have seen me when I was." And everyone started talking about it. This kid felt like $1 million. No matter what it is that you're pointing out, no matter what it is, there's always an opening to just be able and go over and make the kid feel that he belongs there, right? They have the what they the staring idea. You walk into a shul a lot of times and they look you up and down. Just smile at the kid, be like, "That's a nice tie. I like your shoes." Anything, just to make him feel like he belongs there. That
A
kid's
little bit of
always going to smile
validation.
at you.
Right. Okay. Beautiful. Okay. I had one last thing over here I was going to ask you to do. I don't know if you're capable of doing it. So I'm going to ask you if you're capable of doing this first. And if you are, you get a chance. And if not, we'll end the interview here.
I'm in
Can you
alliance, so yeah.
address you have 60 seconds to address all the parents of Klal Yisrael. I mean, I imagine right now watching this Amudim has got to be at least 75% of Klal Yisrael watching this, probably for sure.
Easy.
So you have the other 25% as well. You have 60 seconds to address all the parents of Klal Yisrael. What do you say to them? And I'm gonna start the clock ticking. So and it's gonna ring at the end. So at this point,
Okay,
I'm
I can
losing
do it.
faith in you
I
over
can do it.
here.
I can do
Go
it.
for it. 1, 2, 3, go.
You are the best chance your kid has. You're the only chance your kid has. If you could get the best parenting professional in the world to sit there with your kid and raise your kid, and he's going to mess it up or she's going to mess it up. I'm telling you right now, you're the only one who has the intuition, the love, the compassion, and the connection to your kid to be able to make a difference. When I was young and dumb, I thought I was going to go saving kids all over the place. Now that I have a few years of experience on my belt, I realize something. The best I can do, the absolute best I can do as a professional is to try, obviously, without extreme circumstances, to try to repair a relationship and get a parent and a kid back on board together. If I could do that, I totally save the situation. They'll do fine. They're going to mess up and fix up and mess up. That's fine. But if I could get them back in contact with each other, if I could get them back talking, back loving each other, there was nothing that relationship can't withstand. But if anyone else tries to save your kid, be makar of your kid, it doesn't work. There's no professional out there that's going to do a better job. There's no one out there that 5 minutes with your kid is going to make a difference. Taking them for pizza is going to make a difference. Them saying something nice is going to make a difference. You can do this and you have the talents. Just be calm, walk through, hug them, love them, just as much as possible. The whole world is trying to take your kid. Either you hold them tight enough, not protect them, not shelter them, but hold them and give them that love, or everyone else is going to want to. So get out there and realize you have what it takes. Whatever the reason you don't think you do, let it go. You have what it takes to raise your kids awesomely. I I am 10
You are
seconds
way
over.
over a minute, but my timer
That's
literally went dead. It didn't make a noise. I was waiting for it to ring the bell, and it didn't ring the bell. But you did pretty well overall. I give you a 7 on that. All righty, Rabbi Yossi Bensoussan, thank you so much. It has been a pleasure. Hopefully, this is helping. This is going to be able to help people raise healthy children in an unhealthy world. Thank you very much again to Amudim. Thank you very much to Gabi Scholl and the entire team that has put together this beautiful Unite to Heal program. May we all, as Klal Yisrael, open up our hearts and our wallets to support this incredible organization that is literally at the front lines of Klal
Rabbi.
Yisrael's most. Yes.
10-second plug. I need to do it. I just want to say, anytime I get a call and I need to, Amudim is always there to back up on so many different things. They work so much behind the scenes that people don't even realize how deep their reach goes and how much they do. So guys, get out there. This is an organization that is on par with whatever organization you think Klal Yisrael needs. Trust me, Amudim is there for Klal Yisrael more than just about any organization or most of that's out there. So please get out there and support them.
Wow. Certified Fresh by Rabbi Yossi Bensoussan. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day. Thank you.